Here you go. Hi, everybody. This is insane. I finally have one of my dreams come true to talk to a dentist on the podcast. Yes, it's
Right.
true. My teeth are a really relevant part of my life, and I've always been focused on them because they actually always had a lot of problems. And so the dentist is a very important person in my life. I have to say that I've had the same dentist ever since I was 13 years old. So he's been in my life for 33 years. That is a lot to
Yes,
have as a
that's great.
relationship. But this time I have this special guest, Mario Muchacho. He's Colombian. Great. Love Colombia. And he's actually a dentist and a translator, but we'll find out a lot more. So, a little bit of an introduction just for us to know who Mario is. And thank you so much for being here, Mario.
No, thank you for inviting me, Rita. Well, yes, I'm Mario Muchacho. I'm, as you said, Colombian, but I'm also Venezuelan. I think I hadn't mentioned that
Mhm.
before. I was born in Venezuela,
Ah,
and my dad is Venezuelan and my mom is Colombian. So that's why I have both
mm,
citizenships. So I was born in Venezuela, grew up there, and I went to college there to dental school. And after I graduated, I moved here in Colombia because, as you know, the situation in Venezuela is not that great. I don't know if you know anything about it, but
a little bit.
um, yes, I think everybody knows a little bit about Venezuela, and it's not a good, and mostly not good things. So yes, I have been living here in Colombia for about 6 years already, and which I moved here around the time I started to work as a freelance translator. It was actually one of the reasons, because I was moving to a new country. Of course, I am also Colombian, but anyone who has moved to a different country, whether it was with privileges or not, know that it's a complex experience, right? So I thought it was a great idea to be able to settle in a new place with with a work or a job that I was able to do remotely,
Mhm.
and I was settling in a new place and um, stuff. So yes, I have been living here for about 6 years. And I have been working as a freelance translator ever since. And that's it, I think. A little
Mhm.
bit of an
So
introduction.
now you're even more special. First, because there's a big relationship between Venezuela and Portugal in terms of immigration. There's a lot of Portuguese heritage and all of that over there. And one of my most important mentors, Profesora Margarita Correa, she's actually daughter of Portuguese people, but she was born in Venezuela. So you see, our references match
Yes,
very well.
Venezuelans, I think, are all over the world right now. I don't think there is a country where there isn't at least one Venezuelan.
But for us, it's an historical thing because it was very strong during the 50s and the 60s, a lot of immigration. So there's still a lot of exchange, especially people from our islands. So I guess, well, it's normal for us to know about Venezuelan people. So it's great. So let's go back to apparently while you were still in Venezuela and you were this young guy trying to figure out what to do with your life. And let's see where dentistry was and where languages were. So, right, what happened there? What were they both at the same time in your life, or were you already studying your in your medicine school or whatever it is when you got interested in languages? I suppose not, right? So maybe languages come before. Let's hear it.
I think I think languages came first. Although I still speak only Spanish and English. I have
I
I
love the
want to learn
only
my
part.
third language. Yes, I mean I definitely want to learn a third language. I just haven't decided which one yet.
Hmm.
But I had always been interested in languages, or at least in learning English from a very young age. I don't know, I could tell you maybe since I was 8 or 9. I was always a very curious kid, and I loved studying. I loved reading, and I always had access to the internet, and I always use that as a learning tool.
Because you're only 30 years old, right? That's why you you always had access to the internet.
Exactly. I always had access to the internet at home. So I was able to use it to learn a lot of things, English included. And I, as I grew up, I kept practicing and learning more. And, I became interested in like TV shows and music in English, obviously. And that was a big part of my learning. And yeah, I did it just because I liked it. I wasn't really thinking that, I just love languages. I just wanted to be able to communicate in a different language, and that's it. I hadn't really considered, languages as a career.
Hmm.
Um, with me, it was always, dentistry or even medicine. I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor. Um, but at the end, I'm glad I didn't choose that because I think I definitely like the dentistry a lot more. And I realized that as when I was in dental school. Um, so yes, I went to dental school. I spoke English, but I thought that that was just like, okay, that's one of my skills, and that's it. And nowadays, and it was that case. It was the case back then too. People were like so like how everybody says like English is just like an essential skill now these days. So I thought that, and I was like, okay, I just need to learn English because it's just essential to know English, to speak English these days, and that's it. So I went to dental school, and I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna say I didn't enjoy it, but here's the thing. I didn't really enjoy the clinical part of
Wow.
the dentistry.
Hmm.
Um,
So you like the theory more than the practice, I suppose.
yes, and researching and um, maybe preventing because here's the thing, dentistry, usually the patients you deal with in dentistry, um, because a lot of people, everybody is afraid of the dentist,
Yes.
and yes, and people tend to avoid going to the dentist, and they go to the dentist when they already have a problem. So
Hmm.
usually, a lot of the patients you're going to be dealing with already have a disease or any dental issue, and you have to treat it. So the treatment part is what I don't really like that much.
Right.
And but back in college, everyone were like, well, if you don't like treating patients, then what are you even doing? Because that's
The bread and butter of being a dentist, I suppose.
exactly. But there's definitely other ways to practice
Mm.
dentistry.
I
But
bet.
I didn't really know at the time, I was convinced like that yeah, maybe the clinical path isn't for me. And when I was yes, when I was in my senior year, um, and I saw my graduation very near approaching, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? Because I don't think I want to be in a clinic treating patients. So, and I hadn't really thought about other options in dentistry because I think I wanted to try other things, different things. So I thought, well, you know what? I have always been really good with English, and I already speak English. So what if I can find a way to like use this skill to, I don't know, pivot into a different career,
Hmm.
maybe combine my career with languages, right? And that's why I came to translation, although it wasn't really that easy.
Hmm.
Um,
So when
and
you
wait,
you had your graduation and then you were there and you hadn't decided yet, or you were already thinking, okay, maybe translation might be a way during
no,
graduation time,
No,
Already you
before
were thinking about it?
graduation,
No.
I was already trying to
Mm.
get experience and trying to find clients. Although I mean, I didn't really have I didn't really know a lot about the language industry at the time. I mean, I didn't really even know what a cat tool was,
Yeah, of
or
course.
I mean, many basic concepts, you know, in the language industry. So I was just trying to learn and you know get as much information as possible at that time. And I was like visiting places or websites like Freelancer or Upwork, or you know websites where you can get freelance work,
Hmm.
uh, which were really popular at that time. And you know they right now I wouldn't recommend it,
Yeah.
but back then you were
Because they
able
were
to.
new, right? They were kind of new. So,
Yes, and you know, remote work wasn't, it was a thing already, but it wasn't like right now. Um, so it wasn't as saturated as
mm,
right now. So
mm,
you were able to get good
mm.
experience
So
there.
you graduated, but you hadn't had any translation job yet, right? When you
No,
graduated.
actually, when I graduated, I already had some translation. I remember my first translation
Oh,
job
wow.
was translated a medical cannabis website.
I'd love to do that, by the way. Yes, I'm
Yeah, it was
interested in that subject.
interesting. It was my first time approaching that topic. I didn't really know much about that. And it was very interesting. And that was like 6 months before graduation or something.
Wow.
You know, I was just reading a lot online and like trying to find this opportunity, trying to get experience. And I'm glad I started to do that before graduation because I saw like you know my graduation approaching, and I was like, I have to do something. I have to start preparing for that moment because like when that moment comes, it you know it's gonna be like, now what?
What about this? Don't you have to do asking for friends? Just kidding. Just asking. So didn't you have to do like an internship with like a full blown hands-on experience in order to graduate, or as a second part of
Yes.
being a dentist? So what happened there?
Yes, I did. I that last year, you know, it was only internships,
Mm.
and I had five of them, and just so it was divided, you know, within that year. And while I was doing those
So to
internships,
learn the different types of dentistry, like extraction and braces and all of these things are different, right?
yes, exactly.
Or no?
Like pediatric dentistry and
Oh.
all those different side of dentistry,
Mhm.
I went to a different internship. And
And
while
none
I
of
was
them seemed good to you. But like, I don't see myself doing this forever. Any of this stuff.
no, not really. I think I enjoy more educating patients rather than treating them, you know, preventing the disease rather than treating the disease. And you know, there are paths to like do that in dentistry. Like if you go into prevention, if you go into public health, and you know, there are many ways where you can do that as a dentist.
Mhm.
Um, that I didn't know at the time, obviously. So I just decided to go into translation because it was, yeah, and people had always told me, like growing up, like, oh, you speak English, you're so young, you should be a translator or whatever, you know, or you should be an English teacher. But I never like really consider, as I told you, I started considering it when I told you, I mean, when I was about to graduate. And as I said, I'm glad I did before I graduated because I had already some idea of what the business was like.
Mhm.
Of course, I knew I had to learn a lot, and I mean, I obviously I didn't really have the opportunity to like enroll in a program at the moment because, as I told you, I wanted to move here in Colombia, and you know that comprised of, a bunch of different things that demanded my attention. So I thought, you know what, I still need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I still have a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be the best way to do it um, right now?
So you
And
didn't look for a job. You looked for translation training as you graduated.
no, I didn't at that moment because I thought I couldn't do it because of because of I was going through moving to a different country and all other things that personal things that I were going on at the moment. So I was like, okay, maybe I don't have the time or the money right now to pay for training. So and I learned at that time that translation agencies existed. So I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe if I get an opportunity to work with an agency, I'm gonna be learning a lot. And um, I can learn on the job, and that's going to be great training. And then later I can pursue, like, if I like it, and I did, I can pursue training later on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. I started to apply to agencies. Um, I wasn't having a lot of luck. I had before that, I think, I'm forgetting something really important. Um, I found a job as a Spanish tutor, as a
Mm-hmm.
Spanish conversational tutor with this language learning company. Um, and that was also languages, but it was Spanish, right? It was meant for people who had already a certain level of Spanish, but they needed
Mm-hmm.
to become more fluent and in any topic. Like, for instance, since I knew about medicine and stuff, I was able to help students like gain more fluency, more vocabulary and stuff like that in Spanish with technical topics and stuff like that. And later, I got the opportunity to work as a customer success manager for that same company. So I was
Mm-hmm.
doing both. I was like tutoring Spanish, and I was also working as a customer success manager for them, communicating both in English and Spanish with students and potential students,
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And that was like my way to like make money, pay my bills
Of
while I
course.
was still trying to get into translation because I still had it and I hadn't lost sight of it. But it just was very difficult for me because I didn't really have the tools, the experience, and everything that was needed. Um, but then at some point, I was able to work with this agency, and that's when I left this other job that I just told you, and I started working with this translation agency. And I wasn't working with medical translation with them. It was mostly legal translation, like for immigration purposes. A little bit of medical translation, but if they needed like medical certificates for
Mm-hmm.
like traveling or immigration purposes and
Right.
stuff like that. But mostly birth certificates. Since I am from Venezuela, a lot of Venezuelan people request or apply for asylum, and
Mm-hmm.
they need to tell their stories and all of that. So I was also translating some of that and gaining a lot of experience. Definitely, I gained a lot of experience with them until I thought I wasn't learning anymore.
Was
Like
this a local agency or was it from another country?
from another country. It was from the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it got to a point where I thought that what I could learn on my own, I already learned. So I think it's time for me to like keep growing and keep learning
Mm-hmm.
and
And also, if you work mostly with documents, of course, there's no CAT tools involved, things like that in most of your projects, right?
yes, exactly.
So you didn't
So
really go into that route immediately, and that was still
no,
to come, I suppose.
yes, and I was able to learn like how to work with Word, for instance, and because those are the things that you don't learn, like at least I didn't
Hmm.
learn in school. So I was able to learn how to process documents in Word, how to use all the features, and how to do it properly. And that was a really good training, actually. A lot of work, definitely. It wasn't, paid great, um, but it was a learning experience at the end for me. And it allowed me to realize that I love translation. I think I found something that I really like. And yes, it made me want to pursue more training and education.
But in the meantime, with all this language work that you were doing as a manager, as a language tutor, then, as a translator in whatever materials you were translating, where was dentistry in real life?
It was it wasn't anywhere in my life. I at a point I stopped telling people that I was a dentist because
And you started
I
saying you're a translator.
exactly. I was yes, I'm a translator, and that's it. And like maybe if the issue came up, I would say, oh yes, I'm also a dentist. But
If people would be like,
but
oh my God, what is happening here? Like, oh, I might know.
people would just cover their teeth immediately because that's the first thing people do when they know I'm a dentist.
Really?
Yes, or maybe if they have a dental issue, they want me to look at it and they open their mouth and show me. But
I love it. It's a great conversation piece, right? To be a
yes,
dentist.
definitely great conversation starter. And I practiced for a little bit under a year, I think. It wasn't that long. No, actually, it was much shorter than that, like 6 months or something. Um, and that was enough for me to know that that my place wasn't in like a dental office. And no, I actually I moved here to Colombia, and my degree is a Venezuelan degree. So
I know.
obviously
It
to
doesn't
go to
translate, right?
yes, it doesn't
Directly.
translate.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there are some steps
Hmm.
to like convalidate my degree here. And that was almost 2 years. So during that time, when I think about it, I always thought, okay, well, when I have my degree, I can try something. I can try to go back to dental practice while I'm still translator because I can keep both. But as I said, that was almost 2 years. I don't know. It was maybe 2 years. And during that time, I was just translating and getting better and learning more and more and
Getting new
getting
clients, I
more
suppose, right?
training,
From other places.
getting getting new clients, although I was very clumsy with that and slow, a little bit slow. And obviously, I mean, when you do that, when you do that on your own, you're definitely gonna be making some mistakes and a little bit of trial and error, you know? And that's why I recommend people to like the people who want to get into translation or into the language industry to get a mentor because I wish I had found a mentor earlier, in my career. I think it's very important because not only they will let you know like what you should be doing, but you will also find out if you're doing anything wrong, what you should be working on. Like it's difficult for someone who doesn't have a language background, I mean an academic background
Hmm.
in languages, to know what are the things that you should know and you should study to be a translator,
Hmm.
and what are those skills and how to acquire them, right? So I think a mentor is honestly really good for that, for anyone. I recommend it 100%.
Hmm.
So I forgot what I was. I'm sorry. By the way, I tend to do this a lot. I start talking
Don't
about
worry.
something and end up
Everything is
talking about
relevant, so
nearly.
you don't have to worry about the order or where you were going when we go back. I'm gonna go back there anyway. But I want to ask you, like, since you actually enjoyed the whole idea of, prevention and all of that stuff, why didn't you, for example, think about going back to university, pursuing your studies, and becoming a researcher in this area, for example?
I hadn't considered back then. Um, I just wasn't interested in it because, if I had thought hard about it, I could
Mhm.
have just, gone and done that. But I think that my mind was more on just moving here, and settling here in a new country. I didn't want to keep living in Venezuela at that time. And I think my projects were in a different place at the moment. And right now I'm considering it,
Mhm.
like continuing my education on maybe prevention or research. I think research would be more interesting for me. Um, and I see it as a journey. Like I think this whole translation thing made me realize that too, because with medical translation, you get to work with a lot of patient materials, a lot of patient documents,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you get to they're not that technical, right? Because they are meant for patients.
Right.
So you have to be able to explain or maybe simplify concepts and convey that information for patients. And I realized that I like that a lot. And, explaining things to others, but mostly to patients.
Mhm.
And, you know, little by little, I started to realize that, it's not that I hate dentistry. I never said that, but
You
well,
don't
I didn't.
identify with that particular.
Yes, and I wasn't really finding like that I was enjoying the side of dentistry that I knew, and I hadn't considered others. And I think translation led me to that realization
Mm.
that I I think I want to be not only helping patients improve their health, their oral health, but maybe also I want to be helping other colleagues, dental colleagues, like publish content
Mhm.
or um, producing their materials for their patients, or even maybe translating textbooks for dental schools to use while educating,
Mhm. Yeah, that seems
and
very good to me because it was my mom's dream for me to be a dentist.
oh wow, honestly, my
Yes.
mom too.
I would say that it's because I told you, right? I spent from 10 to 23, I spent a good amount of hours every month in the dentist's office. So, and I had all these things done and all the time. I would come to school every day with something new from the dentist. Either I changed the collar of my braces, elastics, or something was always happening with my braces and my mouth, and all of that was always news. Right. So my mom, she always knew what I was going to do because it was always pretty obvious I was going to go into this path. Obviously, I'd never had any doubts about that. There was never a discussion about this. But my mom would always say when she was mad at me, "Yeah, I really wish you were going to dental school," right? So the word dentist is really popular in my in my life, and it's a really important thing for me. And then a few times I had the chance while I was in the States to actually work with dentist related content, right? So for x-rays, things like that. So there was a company, and I was really happy about that because it's like somehow I feel an emotional connection.
Yes,
Right. So for me, the terminology and all that stuff, that's really important. And I understand exactly what you're saying. The fact that you feel like you can be a bridge between professionals and the actual patients who knows even contributing for them to feel less fearful when they have to face the dentist's chair, right? And the noises and all of that stuff that goes with it. So I do think that there's a really important job to be done here in the communication realm, because we need to know more about it to be less afraid of it, right? So I totally get your perspective.
Yes, exactly. And that's amazing that you were able to like visit the dentist from a very young age. Because that's what we dentists try to do, you know. We want to form a relationship with a patient because the more they visit the dentist, the better health, the better oral health and the general health that they will have. Because not a lot of people know that oral health has an impact on general health too. So a lot of diseases could be prevented if we all had good oral hygiene and we visited the dentist regularly. And usually people when people start visiting the dentist from a very young age, they tend to have better oral health later in life because they kind of lose that fear or get rid of that fear of the dentist. And, as they grow older, they are not that hesitant to like visit the dentist regularly.
It's always an important day, right? When
Yes,
you go to
yes.
the dentist, it's a bit like, okay, everything needs to be more relaxed that day and all that stuff. Even for me, right? I mean, not when I was going every week multiple times, but definitely now in later periods in life. When I was in the States, I didn't go to the dentist the whole time, right? I only went to the dentist when I came to my dentist because I was like, oh my God, I'm afraid of anybody else touching me.
Yes,
So, and also because
exactly.
this is highly manipulated, right? There's nothing of my original teeth inside my mouth anymore. Or my bones
Mhm.
or anything like that. So for me to even the idea of, and now that I moved cities and I'm no longer close to my dentist, I actually need to take care of that. And I've been postponing it forever because I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Who's going to touch me? It's going to be the end of the world, right? I'm so used to this man and I already know
Yes.
what he's going to do. And I was also one of his first real patients because he was only 25 when we when we started our relationship, right? So he was very young and he has evolved a lot. He has his own clinic now. It's a huge thing. So it's like it's really relevant in my life, and I know about his daughters and about his wife, and so
Exactly. It's a big
this
thing.
person is
It's,
very,
it's
very
like,
important, right? So he's a reference
yes.
in my life, just like my teachers or any of these other professionals that were part of everything my life that happened in
Mhm.
my life, right? So I understand this need. Also, they keep all of those tracks of those records with the numbers of the teeth and all of that. And sometimes he shows me and all of that. And he still keeps some of my molds from my braces in his office as a souvenir. So, I mean, I understand what this means to me psychologically and how it takes away the idea of going to a place where I'm going to be super scared. But I am afraid, however, of going to any other dentist. So I
Exactly.
guess it
That because
goes
that's a big
back
deal.
to square one.
It's like changing hairstylists. Like,
Exactly.
but people
Just with a
don't know
lot
what
more
to
pain
expect.
involved. It doesn't go
Exactly.
well. It doesn't go well because I don't have that experience of like almost dying. I had my first ever dentist when I went to the dentist the first time I was 4 years old. Then I have this kind of teeth where the baby teeth didn't go out, so they stayed, right? They
Mhm.
stayed, and then the adult teeth grew, and I had
Mhm.
all of it at the same time. So I would like bite the apples and show all the kids because I had like shark teeth and all sorts of things like that, right? So, and then it was a really bad period in my parents' financial life, and my mom was torn because she didn't know what to do with me with my mouth full of teeth. And so we found this guy who was not a dentist. He was a dentist assistant, and he would do the job at work, right? At his house in his bathroom. So this is one of my horror stories because he
Wow.
wasn't a dentist. Exactly, right? So he was just pulling my teeth and it was really
Mhm.
complicated. I'm still living with the consequences of that. So the importance of having real professionals, people who know what they're doing. And then after that, my mom, once things got better financially, I can assure you was my mom's priority was to take me to the dentist. And so I ended up going to dentist. Everything started fine. And then everything changed for me. And then we started this huge, traveling path of my mouth that took many, many years. But the truth is that I see it as a really positive thing. And it has had a huge impact on everything that I do. And like I told you before, when we were studying what kind of teeth I would have, because these are fake, right? So what kind of teeth? And we had to try it first. And then we had one piece we had to change because I couldn't send the air out through the middle of my teeth as I naturally would, because I had my gap was like this, my original gap. I could fit this
Wow.
finger. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's because my canines, I'll say this in a non-technical way because of course I don't know how to talk about it from a technical point of
Okay.
view. So they were inside my roof, right? And also I didn't have these. So these are completely fake. And these ones were recovered from my from the ceiling, from up there.
Okay.
So this was
Amazing.
my mouth, right? Just in front of it. So I had all this room just for these two teeth, and therefore I had all of this room between them. So that's
Exactly.
probably one of the biggest differences I've had. And many other things that I had manipulated in my mouth. Maybe these days things are a little bit different, and I wouldn't have needed all the commotion that was needed back then, because I'm sure it evolved immensely. My brother recently decided to also wear braces, but he wore those Invisalign ones, right? And in like 2 or 3 years, basically everything that I had done was done for him, and he basically didn't feel
Perfect.
anything. So, but I went the hard
Lucky.
way, and that's why I have a lot of stories, some of them terrible, some of them good, but not the dentist's fault necessarily. It's just the nature of my situation that was very particular. But I tell you, it's my conversation piece all the time. I talk about my teeth all the time. It's a thing for me. So I couldn't be more excited to be talking to dentists. Talking about exciting things, I saw on your LinkedIn profile, of course, that's where I saw that you existed, that you in 2023, I guess you finally just decided to come out as a translator, and you actually either have your own company or you have your own practice, practice, right? So what's the story in 2023?
Yes, I mean, I realized that I needed a website, obviously. I mean, if you're a freelance translator, you need to be able to you have to be visible, right? I was also very afraid of becoming visible. I have to tell you that. I actually I'm a nervous wreck.
Now that you're a
And
podcast guest, this will only get worse.
yes, I was actually nervous about talking to you today, but I was actually more excited than nervous.
That's
It's
good.
something that I have been working on. I think mental health, it has also been a big part of my journey because I have had to work on my confidence, on imposter syndrome, which is, I think, the other pandemic that we're having at the moment.
Mhm.
Um, and it's so important because it was keeping me from like pursuing better opportunities, to going after better opportunities or better agencies or raising my
Mhm.
rates, for
Mhm.
instance. Um, so yes, I had to work a little bit of that on that. And while I was doing that, work on myself, I realized that I had to lose that fear of becoming visible. I had to create a website and, maybe being a little bit more active on LinkedIn. Um, so I started to work a little bit on designing my website on my own because I also I have I took this. It was like a programming boot camp or something like that. But it was really long, for like 8, 9 months or something like that. I became interested in it. I thought it would be really interesting to see if maybe I liked it too. I didn't. I mean, the way or programming jobs are not really that interesting to me as much as translation, for instance. But I was able to learn a little bit of programming, a little bit of HTML, CSS, all those things needed to build a website. And
So
at the
you
end of
build
the
it
day,
yourself.
yes, and it wasn't really that difficult, to be honest. Like there's a lot of tools out there that you can just use. You don't have to write any code anymore. See,
Mm.
I mean, that's the thing. So I felt that like this bootcamp gave me a lot of background and a lot of tools for me to work on my website and create it myself and build it myself. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start working on this, slowly, no rush, no pressure. And I came up with the idea of, since I was still very hesitant to like become visible, I didn't want to put my name on it. Like I didn't want to be MarioMuchacho.com. So I decided to
But that's a really cute name, being called Muchacho, I think.
yes, and people usually tend to like overpronounce when they don't speak, when they're not Spanish speakers, they tend to overpronounce like the che sound. I think it's lovely, honestly. Like muchacho and it's kind of funny sometimes. But yes, I decided to like come up with a brand name. Um, and I came up with dental language. I had a friend help me design the logo. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
do that myself, obviously. I had a friend help me, and I finished it. I launched it. I kept working on it because it's obviously never going to be done, and I'm always like making improvements and little changes and stuff. And it became like my way to start like a new stage in my career, like I call
Mm-hmm.
it that maybe. Um, and where I want to be pursuing or finding direct clients. I
Mm-hmm.
have been working with agencies already for a long time.
So what kind
I
of agencies do you work for? Are they specialized in the medical field in general, or are there translation agencies specialized in dentistry that I've heard of? Nope, it's like medical and then they focus on it, or but you tell
no,
me.
not on dental, not on dentistry. There are agencies specialized in medical translation,
For sure.
obviously.
Those exist.
But
Yes.
yes, but I'm mostly working right now. I do have some agency clients,
Hmm.
um, but I'm working mostly with CROs. Do you know what CROs are?
If you can tell us.
They're contract research organizations,
Hmm.
um, and they basically what they do is help pharmaceuticals or medical companies or whatever conduct the research.
Hmm.
Obviously, a lot of these a lot of this research, a lot of these studies um, happen internationally. So they need to be able to translate and to offer documents, all of these research documents
Hmm.
in many languages. So they have their own language departments, a lot of them.
Hmm.
Some of them outsource the translation work to other agencies, but a lot of them have their language departments.
Yeah.
So I'm mostly working with CROs at the moment and a few agencies. And since they're obviously medical translation agencies and CROs, I sometimes get dental assignments. Not many. I would love to be working mostly with dental assignments, obviously, which is why I'm trying this approach with dental language with my website and trying to build like my presence online, my
Hmm.
my authority and to then start going after direct clients. But yes, those are mostly the clients I'm working with.
Yeah. So you work these CROs and these people are all over the place, more in the American continent, more in Europe, all over the place. What's usually the story?
Yes, they can be all over the place. Most if they have, for instance, one of the CROs I'm working with, they have headquarters in the United Kingdom.
Mhm.
Um, there are others that have different headquarters, like they have in South America, in Europe, the United States. They can have different locations. So yes, they are all over the place, definitely.
So you're now working from Colombia to the world.
Yes, exactly. Mostly translated into the Colombian variant, but also into the
Mhm.
Venezuelan variant,
Mhm.
um, Latin American variant, which it's, exists, but
Right, right. I know from a project management point of view, of course. So I know what you mean. Okay, this was amazing, Mario. Finally talking to me after months and months of thinking I have to talk to Mario and then this and then that, but finally it happened. So I'm really happy that we finally met. And it was really, really nice talking to you and getting to know you and getting to know the story behind this translator dentist translator. I love it. And one of these days we might have a terminology conversation about this because it's something that I really enjoy. So thank you so much. And I wish you all the best and good luck with your project, your new website, your new business, and good luck for your life in the amazing Colombia.
oh, thank you, Rita. Seriously, you make it so easy. Like it felt really natural talking to you. Thank you for the invitation, and I hope you have a great day too.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it was easier than going to the dentist, I have to say. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, bye bye.
Thank you.